Governor Bobber. I like good day, doctors.
George Allen here. Good day, doctors.
Hey, this is Governor Chris Christie from New Jersey. Good day, doctors.
Go! You're watching Dr. Politics.
Welcome, everyone. Dr. Dave made it just in time. Welcome to the show. It is.
Dr. Dave was out doing a house call, and traffic was a little tough getting back. So
traffic is tough, but no. In truth, I was writing a Substack column, and so I wasn't even on my email, and then I realized the time, so I was like,
yeah. And, we're almost done with September. We are officially getting into the days of, we are getting into the Christmas season, frankly.
Darn it. I don't like it.
We got to get to Halloween and Thanksgiving. Come on.
Yeah, Columbus Day, too. Don't forget Columbus Day. We used to have Columbus Day candy back in the days. It was like the same as it was made of the same stuff you make candy corns and those little pumpkins out of. But they had little ships and Chris Columbus heads. And it's
the federal government. The feds still call it Columbus Day, right? The Biden administration didn't get that changed, did they?
They do.
Well, would it take an act of Congress?
Yeah, but does it matter what the administration does or what Google says it is?
Yeah,
that's a good point.
And by the way,
Google definitely says it's Indigenous Peoples Day.
Yes, they do. Do they have cards for Indigenous People Day? Do they have like the Land O'Lakes cover for the card or something like that? I mean, Indigenous people, do they have the cards? Because I know when I was a kid, you could find, they used to sell Columbus Day. Hallmark used to have a Columbus Day card.
Well, here's an idea, which is we could have an Indigenous Peoples Day parade, and we could recycle a whole lot of Redskins materials. I guess that would. It's just a thought.
I like that idea.
I do too. But the thing is, and I always wanted, but I think it's now politically incorrect, and I don't even know where you can get one. But like a cigar store Indian, I always wanted one of those in my house. But I don't know if they're even make them.
And for all of our Trekkie viewers, it is Stardate 87363.6, I should say. I should do that in Picard's voice next time, or Cisco's voice,
But if I can make just one last point with the Native Americans, for me, it was horrible when Land O'Lakes got rid of the Native American squaw from their label. I thought that was horrible. I thought she was very pretty, and it wasn't necessary in terms of. I didn't think it was demeaning at all. I thought she was very pretty, and I think
I only have to remember the Land O'Lakes commercials from the late 70s and early when they had like a Native American woman. She'd talk about the cliff jumpers and the Thunderbirds, and she'd bring that all together and they gave us maize and talks about Land O'Lakes and.
I think it was fine. I think it was a nice depiction. I didn't think it was unflattering.
Unlike the liberals at the ad council.
But I was going to say that, but you're missing. I mean, one of the issues is it used to be that you couldn't show people, unflattering way. That was being derogatory. And now the problem is if you're showing people in a positive way, that's cultural appropriation.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
Well,
yeah,
right. So basically, you can't portray people either in a positive way or in a negative way. You really apparently can only do it maybe in a neutral way.
Yeah.
or in a
So
way
Dr.
that can. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was saying, so Dr. Quest and race, when Johnny Quest, that was cultural appropriation for having Haji, who, by the way,
Yes.
turns out to be
Yeah.
some prince in the reboot of Johnny
Yeah.
Quest. What's that all about? You know,
But you see,
hey,
that's
Jason's watching. Hey, Jason, you want to jump on? I'll send you the link right now if you want to jump on the show.
Jason. Go back to work. You got torts to study. Don't take the bait.
That is Professor Unkelfer.
I know what it's like. I went through first year law school, and I know things like this are great temptations to avoid doing what you have to do.
Yeah, it's like a lot of but but one last thing about Native Americans and cultural appropriation. The Ad Council, which we know is run by a bunch of liberals, right? They used to have a commercial about littering where they had a Native American who really wasn't even a Native American.
Yeah.
It's
I
like
remember.
they were like the granddaddies of cultural appropriation, Or another one that people seem to have a problem with is Star Trek Voyager. The first officer was a Native American, but he wasn't really a Native American. He was Hispanic playing a Native American, which they had, there you go. What do you call? And it's funny, the Maquis had a colony that was settled by Native Americans. And one of the storylines they did was of Starfleet wanted to take them off of relocate them from a planet. I'm like, really? They're going down this road? But that wasn't the issue. The issue people had, why did they have Hispanics portraying Native Americans? That was the big issue with the left with Star Trek Voyager. But excuse me. And anyways, as I was saying a lot of things happened this week, by the way. All right, guys, did you know?
Well, you see now, that's right. Let's follow that up because, of course, we do have the phenomena of like Bridgerton and other shows that portray blacks in casts in roles that had been sort of traditional white only roles because they were in period pieces in the UK. So for that, at least the standard has changed that you can have people cast in roles that historically they weren't necessarily seen to be appropriate for. Is that about right?
I want to say I was in third grade or so, maybe third. The fifth and sixth graders did a play about the Gettysburg Address. Abe Lincoln was black. Most of the slaves were white, and a Chinese person was portrayed as General Lee. Talk about that.
His last name might have been Lee, and it might have been Lee, or his last name.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, right. It's just a different.
Do you remember when they, during the whole Charlottesville controversy, ESPN, they had a game, I guess, at UVA, and the announcer was named Robert Lee, but I guess he was Asian. And in order to be sensitive, they reassigned him.
I remember that. Good old ESPN.
Just the very name might trigger some kid.
Never mind. He probably spelled with one E and not two, right? Or
I don't know. I knew a guy named Don Lee, and I think that was two L's.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about? I mean, Disney's been doing this stuff for years now, right? Everything has been, recast as they go through things, and things that there's a lot of stuff for them that's not politically correct anymore, so they kind of banished them or tried to change that. It's
my problem is in the changing of it. If you don't like Snow White, just write a new story, but don't try to take that story and then change it all around.
Which, by the way, Snow White was not that great of a story either. Honestly, it wasn't the best. And again, I think it's also. I'm saying Snow White might have been a little bit one-sided. We really don't get the stepmother's perspective. Maybe Snow White was a horrible stepchild, you know. You know, we don't know that. By the way, ABC had a great series in the 80s called The Charmings, where basically she didn't die. They threw her down a deep hole. Then when she crawled out, she casted a spell that put everyone to sleep, and she got caught in her own spell. They woke up in the 1980s in Chicago. And it's funny, the neighbors was the carpet king of Chicago, and they'd always bow when he'd come over, you know. But that was a really good depiction, I thought, you know, modernized spin. Unfortunately, they put it up against Cosby, and then the show died when they did that. That's how you kill a show. You put it up against Cosby in the 80s, and then the show dies really fast.
It sort of shows lack of confidence on the part of the network when they send. It's sort of sending. It's the equivalent in a war of sending untrained troops into the field to go against.
It's kind of like the Russians' campaign in Ukraine. They're now sending people out of the Gulag.
I mean, they're sending like.
They've been doing it since for a while now.
Yeah.
But it's like, hey, you know, you want to get out of the gulags? Hey, you go and fight in Ukraine. You'll be free when you come back from the war.
So, not to change the subject on you guys, but this TV trivia thing I can pass on. But did you guys see that the ICBM that blew up that Russia was going to quote test and demonstrate their nuclear their prowess as a nuclear power and their right, because apparently the Soviet era missiles have not been maintained and are not, you know, really up to snuff. So they had to use what is called, I think it's called the Satan rocket. You know, it's this massive, like the Russians like to do, this massive thing, and it blew up. And of course, it makes a really powerful satellite image to see this large facility on the ground that was used where they were going to launch from. And then you see the after picture where everything is like blown to smithereens.
And
I haven't seen it.
So, I mean, I don't know if you guys have seen pictures of the Soviet space shuttle they had.
Well, I was going to say it was in the Washington Post, but on the other hand, who reads the Post anymore?
I know, it's like who does? I mean, the paper is. I remember when I canceled my subscription to the Post because I used to get a paper copy of the Post come to my house, and I canceled it. The woman's like, "Why are you canceling? We're such a great." I go, "Well, I have had it enough with your anti-Trump biases." Yeah. And she goes, "We're not anti-Trump." I'm like, "Yeah, you're fair and balanced, right? Am I supposed to believe that one?" And she couldn't believe somebody would actually cancel the subscription to the Washington Post, and she was ready to give me like 6 weeks for free after that. But
you can negotiate on all these newspapers.
Well, I told her I was going to subscribe to the Washington Times instead daily. Yeah. Except it's not a daily anymore.
Yeah. What is it? What is the status of the Times? I had a column in the Times once, or a one-day column.
They're still around. David Keene had a great article this week on the pragmatic vote in Maryland should go to Larry Hogan, you know. And David Keene, former ACU chairman, we know he's no liberal, you know, frankly. It's the fact that he's telling people to vote for Larry Hogan, you know, that's not a bad thing, frankly.
It's a good thing.
Yep.
And so what do you make of also Brooks? I saw an ad of hers the other day talking about inflation.
Let's see. Angela wants to not pay her taxes, take illegal tax credits, game the system, while she wants to raise our taxes when she goes into the. She supports the radical Kamala Harris-Joe Biden agenda, frankly, and the Tim Walz agenda.
Well, let's go back to the tax thing, because that is actually kind of the gift that keeps on giving over the years, which is public officials who take homestead allowances when they're not entitled to it. If you've got a long enough memory, you'll remember Tom Daschle did that in Washington, D.C. That it naturally got him in trouble because, of course, it sends this message. At least Alsobrooks was like living in the area as opposed to, claiming a residence when they were, when they were a resident of another state, claiming Washington, D.C.
Well, remember the Democrats had a congressional candidate as a resident of Florida running against Andy Harris.
Well, they're actually a residence, but you're right. But every election cycle, when I was party chairman in Montgomery County, I would get a number of phone calls from people doing, quote, background research on candidates, particularly incumbent candidates, and the issue would be whether or not the candidate had claimed residence in Montgomery County. And for anybody familiar with the SSTAT system, it's really easy. It's really open season to figure out whether or not they've done that. You can look it up and see what their property taxes assessed at and see whether they're taking the homestead stuff. And so what amazes me is how often people end up running afoul of that particular issue. I mean, it really is something you should put in the back of your head for any kind of oppo research to be able to check, because probably one time out of 50 people end up doing exactly that, and you get exactly the kind of story that you get with Alsobrooks, where they're not entitled to do it.
And this is what's going to propel Larry Hogan to the United States Senate.
Yeah. Marilyn Mosby, if you recall, pulled the same stunt in her case that she ended up basically getting convicted on, which was claiming a owner-occupied status when she got a mortgage for her place in Florida, which she got during COVID, but she obviously was still prosecuting attorney in Baltimore City at the same time. So, and that version of this is actually criminal because it was on bank loan records, and that's a definite no-no to lie on those documents.
Well, I think honestly, actually what Alsobrooks did is also in the gray zone of criminality. This might just be the tip of the iceberg. We don't know, and it's like, and the way she rails against the rich and President Trump about not paying their tax. How about you pay your own fair share of taxes, Angela? Yeah. How about you make the streets of PG County safe? How is it that if I don't start smelling pot the minute I enter into your county? How about you take care of stuff like that? Honest to God, whenever I go to Goddard, I know I've entered PG County because I start smelling the pot right at the IKEA, right around the IKEA store on 95. And that is how I know I'm in Prince George's County, or PG County, as I like to say, or Piggy County, as we used to call it. So it's maybe if you can lower the murder rate, then you might want to consider running for Senate. But Larry Hogan has a track record. I know they're trying to malign Larry Hogan on abortion. Part of me says, how much I wish if Larry Hogan were the radical that you say he was on life and so on. Larry Hogan has never been a hard pro-life governor. Larry basically was Larry. He did not. He's your middle of the road, moderate Democrat in the mold of Mac Mathias, Susan Collins, Mitt Romney. He's in that mold. He's not a Jesse Helms, Strom Thurmond, Phil Gramm Republican at the end of the day. Although Phil Gramm used to be pro-choice, by the way.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
Is he still with us?
Yes, he is.
Wow. How old has he got to be by now?
Close to 100.
Oh, that's amazing.
Come on.
Now let's see. Okay, let me do it.
I don't think he's that old. Probably 80 something.
Nah, he's got to be older than that.
He's 80. He's 82.
Oh, well,
that's young. He's a lot younger than I thought he was.
Don, that's pretty impressive. How did you do that?
Yeah, I vouched a few weeks ago that I'm going to be the when Dwight
Fact
says
checker.
certain things, I'm kind of the instant fact checker a la CNN,
See-
David Muir.
just to keep Dwight honest.
Although maybe you can emulate the fact checkers, and I get fact checked all the time, but never Dwight.
I'm only targeting Dwight. Yes, I'm biased.
No, that's fine. You know,
I'm giving him the Trump treatment.
hey, I was close. I was close when I said about 100. You know,
So he's younger. He's younger than Mitch McConnell. Is what you're saying?
yeah.
Wow.
Hey, let's put Phil back.
I'm waiting to see if Don's going to fact check that. I want to see if you're going to how quickly you can come up with Mitch's age.
You know, and you know he could still. You know, he
exactly the same age. They were born 5 months apart.
Well, but Phil Graham does not look his age, while Mitch McConnell looks.
But McConnell is is the one who's 5 months older.
Yeah, that 5 months. He looks that 5 months. You may as well put 5 years older.
You know, maybe this is a case where Phil Graham always looked a little older than he is, and therefore he's not all that old. Maybe it was like because he was the gray hair, was balding. You know?
That's true. Yeah,
maybe all those years ago, he didn't. He looked older than he was. That's why he's still around.
Phil Graham was a good friend of Montgomery County. He used to come out and do stuff here. He did an event.
He's a former Democrat. He's a former Democrat too.
Yeah.
Right.
When he tried to work with the president, his party threw him out.
Yeah.
Committees and stuff like that.
No, he did during Reagan.
He resigned and ran again for his seat.
Right.
And by the way, Phil Graham is the only party switcher that did it the right way, by the way. He resigned, and by the way, when Phil Graham ran as a Republican, there wasn't an elected Democrat within 100 miles of his district, as Phil Graham put it. And he was the first elected Republican for that 6th congressional district. I think was that his district, Texas 6.
So speaking of Texas politics, one of the stories that came out is some discussion of the fact that basically the super PAC that Mitch McConnell controls has not been supporting Rick Scott or Ted Cruz. Apparently, they've gotten the cold shoulder because, of course, allegedly, they've both been thorns in Mitch McConnell's side, and I think he's doing a little payback. And for what it's worth, Ted Cruz is apparently only a few points. As we think of Texas as being such a solid state, apparently Ted Cruz is running into some problems there.
Yeah, he always seems. Yeah, with Cruz, it always seems close for him. In terms of Beto, I think his first race was tight. So it happens. I think Cruz will end up winning, but he doesn't usually win by big margins. And maybe that's the way Texas is nowadays. You're not going to win by big margins.
He's no Kay Bailey Hutchinson who would run away with it.
Yeah. There's really no polite way to say it. I know this is a family show, but Ted Cruz is he's not an amiable guy. He is not going to attract a lot of crossover support because there are no pastels around Ted Cruz.
Right. Yeah.
Well,
it's true. Yeah.
Even John Cornyn wins by bigger numbers for his Senate.
Yeah, and there's a great example of somebody who does, is going to attract a broader set of
He
votes.
would make a great president one day, John Cornyn, but I think that ship has sailed for him, though. He might be a little too old.
Isn't he quick, Don, how old is John Cornyn?
I think he's probably in his 60s.
No, I'm thinking 70, 73.
72?
73, 72.
72?
72.
Hey, we have a winner.
Yeah,
okay.
Chicken dinner.
Right. All right, yeah.
The ageist.
I've noticed that Dwight is really challenged when it comes to figuring out ages.
No, I got Cornyn right there. I said 72, and he's 72.
You started with 60.
Yeah, I said 60s. Like I said 68. I go, maybe if it's 70s, that's 72. He's not like an old 70. But he still looks better than Mitch McConnell at 72. When Mitch McConnell was 72.
Mitch McConnell. Oh, well, but Mitch is 80 something.
I know, but when he
82
was
as
72,
we established.
You know what? I
But he-
don't know if you guys saw, to change the subject if it's okay. If you saw the View interview with Biden, I only saw clips of that, but I don't know if you guys had watched that.
Yeah, I saw some clips too. It was embarrassing.
It was embarrassing. It was embarrassing for a number of reasons. One, it's like an alternative reality. I understand you want to give someone softballs and kind, but he was forced out, and they keep acting as if. And Biden, it's like a mass delusion, and the audience acted as if, he's like George Washington. He stepped aside for the good of the country, and that's just so
pushed
stupid.
him out of the way. You pushed him out of the way.
Yeah, he was. And you know what else I'm hearing? I believe this may be true. They threatened him with the 25th Amendment. They said, "You better get out, or if you don't, you'll lose the White House too. If we invoke the 25th Amendment, you're gone." I wouldn't be surprised if they threatened him that hard.
So they probably figured out a kind of gentle way of doing that. Making it clear that was the club in the closet.
Right. Yeah. That's what I'm saying.
And Nancy Pelosi, who at least some news accounts attribute that to, is legendary as a master of the club in the closet. As part of her leadership style. When she was speaker or when she was minority leader, of keeping Democrats in line, and she did have a way as I understand, never been on those obviously receiving end of it, but she did have a way of kind of establishing that whoever you were, she had the club in the closet that could come down on you if you were going to win. Hey, but Dwight, you're a big fan of alternative history.
Yes.
Here's an interesting question: is now the genesis of the first debate, the Biden-Trump debate, was that Biden challenged Trump to a debate, and with the expectation that Trump wouldn't accept it because it was on a venue that he wouldn't. It was on ABC, and he wouldn't take that, and then Trump agreed to do it. So the interesting question is how did that come about? Which advisor told Biden that this was a smart idea? And what if Biden said, no, I'm gonna wait and do the debates in September or October, or let's say after
I want to say it may have been what's his name, Axelrod, or maybe even Kamala said, "Hey, go do it, boss. You'd be great. Trump's a lightweight. You can beat him."
But understand, but the issue, but the way they got that was the expectation was they would make the offer to go do the debate, and they assumed that Trump wasn't going to agree to it. That Trump was just going to, and this would be their way of, saying, well, yeah, we're prepared to talk about issues and what have you. Trump just won't debate. Obviously, Trump was willing to do it. But it would have been an interesting set of history had that not happened. And I'm sure Jill Biden. The interesting thing is, Don, help me out here. I'm willing to bet Jill Biden knows how that debate offer came into being, and she will never, ever, ever, ever forgive.
Well, wait till she writes her book. She'll start naming people when she writes her memoirs next year.
Names will be named about how that debate offer came into being.
I mean, they've already leaked the fact that Biden is very angry at the Obamas, and he's mad at David Axelrod. He's mad at Nancy Pelosi. He's mad at what's his name, Chucky Schumer. And he's there's gonna be a memoir. I wouldn't be surprised if Jill ghostwrites Joe Biden's memoirs, frankly. And in those memoirs,
Karl Rove did a piece this past week. I guess it was yesterday, for the Wall Street Journal, and he picked up on the fact that probably the worst thing that Biden could do was go out and campaign, and that's exactly what he's doing. And to add insult to injury, apparently he's got some appearances in Pennsylvania planned, and but basically, Rove's point was that he's just, well, he implies that, he didn't come out and saying that he's just taking the knife and sticking it in by being so public.
Well,
yeah, it's
and that may have been why he put on the MAGA hat. Remember, he put the MAGA hat on.
He just liked the color red.
I mean, during that View thing, right? I mean, we saw that clip too of Biden saying that he would have beaten Trump. I mean, also delusional.
Yeah, no. And they just applaud or they let him get away with it. They don't challenge him.
Yeah, well, and it's because it's not supposed to be a fair and balanced show. It's a bunch. It's mostly a bunch of liberals, and everybody kind of knows what they're going to get with that show.
Yeah.
And we still have MSNBC go basically. What was it? The other day they were wringing their hands about how, again, how President Trump was responsible for his own assassination attempts. It's like, stop it. And it's like, they're saying part of the hateful rhetoric is all coming from the left. The left is the one. It started with Johnny Depp and that actress who I can't think of her name right now, who had his head, a bloody head in effigy.
Kathy Griffin.
Yeah, Kathy. Yeah. She's become so.
But it is incredibly worse. And obviously, some of the news report coming out in the last couple of days, but the intelligence about Iranian efforts to assassinate Trump, I don't want to go too far down the road, but clearly, if a state is a country is willing to engage in that, you're not talking necessarily about a lone gunman someplace. You're perhaps talking about more.
And to all my liberal friends, I want to say something nice about Bill Clinton, so pay attention. When Bill Clinton found out the Iraqis were trying to kill Bush Sr., we bombed Iraq in retaliation for that. I don't see Joe Biden bombing anyone, frankly. Or putting up sanctions against Iran again, or taking away their money that he gave them. It's just Joe Biden has, as Governor Ehrlich's book, what's the title there? He turned America from the sweet land of liberty to weak, woke, and wobbly. And he did. And we knew he was going to screw up, but I don't think anybody thought he'd screw up within the first 5 months. We'd see how horrible the country is, frankly.
Oh, yeah. Well, and the border thing, we're going to be dealing with that for the rest of our lives. You're going to have
and Kamala Harris on MSNBC goes, well, we inherited the worst economy since the Great Depression. I noticed Barack Obama said he inherited the worst economy since the Great Depression. Bill Clinton said he inherited the worst economy since. Jimmy Carter said he inherited the worst economy since the Great Depression. What is this? It's every time there's a Republican in the White House, you can't all have the worst economy since the Great Depression.
One of the interesting could respond to that. One of the fascinating things is to watch the Democrats respond to the polling data that shows, as we've all seen, that concern about the economy is the top issue, or among the top issues, probably nip and tuck with the border, depending on the polls. And as I think we all know, it's heavily drawn by inflation. Incomes have not kept up with the cost of living, and therefore people are experiencing a gap. And it does seem that the Democrats in the Biden administration, in trumpeting Bidenomics as being such a success, are very much captives of a kind of their Keynesian government will create demand approach to the economy, and the pure Keynesian, or maybe not pure Keynesian, because Keynes was a little bit more sophisticated, but the Keynesian, as it's interpreted, focuses on the idea that if government creates enough demand, everything else will take care of itself, and therefore there's a kind of blind spot of not being able to respond to inflation. And they really don't get it. They look at the unemployment numbers and say, what's not to like, and they don't I really don't understand that, because they look at a single metric without appreciating the full impact of the way people respond to the economy.
Yeah, I don't think Harris knows anything about economics. I think she's lost on the subject, well, lots of other subjects. And she continues this same old. I mean, they're word salads, but it's what you said. It talks about, well, we invest in people, and when you invest in people, you have a strong. I mean, just sort of nonsensical stuff.
Hey, she grew up middle class, Dave, and they kept their lawns. They had nice lawns,
Yeah, but you think at McDonald's, working at McDonald's, she would have understood economics.
Yeah, she never worked at McDonald's.
I know.
Closest thing she got to McDonald's was having a McDonald's land Barbie.
Yeah.
So let me come back. So one of the things that she proposed this week was $100 billion plan to, quote, invest, which is what I think one of the most dangerous words in the Democratic lexicon is, we're going to invest in something. But they were going to invest in, I guess it was credits for, quote, new industries. And I guess I assume is part of the appeal to states like Wisconsin and Pennsylvania and Michigan and what have you. And it's like you wanted to say, first of all, we know that those $100 billion are going to go to companies that are politically connected and have the right kind of technology. They're not going to go to a lot of other companies that are struggling. And I think a lot of people see it that way too, which is, if you've got a job working at a auto supplier you're going to wonder whether or not you're going to see any of that money. You're in fact going to have your competition in electric vehicles funded, and we'll see what happens with China.
But China is going to be dumping a lot of EVs on the U.S. market, from what I can tell. Reading the tea leaves, they've got a whole.
Well, not just dumping. I mean, they don't. The structure of the market is such that they can underprice whatever anyone else in the world can produce on EVs by a dramatic factor.
I mean, Mark, you may not remember, but in the 80s, remember the Japanese were accused of dumping Sony television into the U.S. market, which took out American television manufacturing.
Well, yeah, no, but specifically too, the push for EVs, because the technology for a vehicle is so different. It really is the creation of the battery is kind of the value add for an EV, that you are talking about just a completely different industry than currently exists. And that it wipes out a huge number of UAW jobs, because those plants in the north are not going to continue on. But beyond that, I think, as you've already talked about, the Chinese have a huge advantage in creating EVs. I mean, the Germans, for example, should be every bit as afraid about it. In fact, I think I saw some stuff about Volkswagen dramatically reducing its employment in Germany as well. So,
well, this is what Trump meant when he said a bloodbath. That's what he meant. A bloodbath.
Yeah. One of the ways that we're being sort of less than honest about people with this transition to the, quote, electric economy is we're not really being honest about the fact that, you can subsidize, you can create a little benefits and what have you, but like you talked about, Dwight, with the Sony television, we really are just talking about wiping out a huge manufacturing industry that used to produce gas-powered vehicles.
And as you can see, Stellantis rejected the great grandson of the Chrysler Corporation to buy Dodge and Chrysler from Stellantis Group, because I think Stellantis is going to drop Chrysler and Dodge at some point, frankly, because those things are. I mean, Dodge just got rid of their most popular cars, the Challenger and the Charger, and they're being replaced by EVs, which nobody really wants. nobody's ever heard of the EV power. What do you call
Muscle car.
muscle car? Yeah.
Right.
And these EVs are not going to, people are going to, and basic Stellantis has rejected the offer. I think it's a great idea that we put the great grandson of Walter Chrysler, Rhodes behind the helmet Chrysler, but
Sure.
I think it still would be a challenge to bring Chrysler back because Chrysler has just really gone downhill nobody really wants to buy a Chrysler, these days. What does Chrysler make? The minivan, and that's about it. Because because they got rid of their sedan, and
well, we should start in. We should start in on GM or Government Motors because
hey, say what you want with the Cadillac Escalades.
I know you like to buy their stuff, but
I like it.
Their transition. Their transition. I'm a Japanese fan, Japanese car fan.
And you grew up in Buffalo.
And I grew up in Buffalo. But let me come back to the fact that GM is all in for the electric transition, and it remains to see whether or not people really want to go down that road.
Well, I think we saw all this great rush, right, to EVs. I mean,
right.
Companies said, okay, yeah, we're going to start converting to EVs. We're going to have sort of battery factories and all this stuff, and that and they sold some cars, and then kind of the wave and the popularity that people said, okay, well that's fine. That was a interesting. Ford has their Mustang, and it was kind of a hot car, but when they added up the bottom line, it's like, oh, wait a minute, we're losing a lot of money every time we sell one of these. So now they start pulling back, and yet we're still facing mandates, I guess, in California and other places where they're supposed to outlaw the internal combustion engine. It's like, government mandates forcing people to buy this product only and taking away their choice. This doesn't work. I mean, this is what the Kamala Harris is what she's talking about, right? The opportunity economy says we're telling you what to buy and what we're going to be selling. She wants to have price controls. She wants to have $25,000 for first-time home buyers, which doesn't help them save $25,000. Homes are going to get more expensive by $25,000.
And not to be that guy, but I'll say you shouldn't be buying a house with only $25,000 down. You need to be putting at least 20% down. Because why would you want to waste your money on EMI?
Or you should move to somewhere in the country that.
Yeah, I mean, you could move to Kansas, or even southern Pennsylvania. You could buy a really nice house for $600,000 there.
Yeah, but let me come back to the car thing, because I think one of the interesting things about it is we talk about the subsidies going into buying an electric vehicle as opposed to internal combustion or gas-powered vehicle. And I think one of the things is sometimes lost in the whole process is we have an infrastructure in the U.S. or in the world with internal combustion where a car goes down in value, but a used car retains a certain amount of value and can be traded. And so Dwight, who buys a new car every 6 months.
No, it's 5 years.
5 years. I can't even imagine you wait 5 years, but let's say he really does.
I need to keep track of this so I can fact check this in the future.
Okay,
I know you really should. So let's just for argument's sake say that he actually traded in his car at 5 years. That car still had some market value and could go into the used car business, into the used car market, and he got some trade-in value for that. One of the challenges with EV is it's kind of binary with the battery. Once the battery is gone, or it's not working anymore, obsolete, whatever, the vehicle is pretty well shot. And you may go out to a couple of years, however many years, and that can be something of a challenge. But you don't have the resale market that you have with internal combustion machine.
A lot like this laptop. Mark, the battery went dead on here. And I only bought this like 5 years ago. The battery's dead.
The battery's dead. The product is gone.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm going to buy it because it's a good laptop. It's an i9 processor and everything. But
Right.
I mean, a battery should not go. I mean, that's pretty much what's going to happen to your EVs. And a battery for this is about a couple $100, which is fine. It's not a big deal, but proportionally, you take that a battery for a Tesla Cybertruck has got to be $5,000-$6,000.
So let me make a shameless
They're
plug
even more
for.
than that. I think they're up to 10.
10.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Let me make a shameless plug for my favorite car maker, Honda. One of the selling points is that it retains a high trade-in value. You can have it for, if Dwight really does it 5 years, you're going to have you can be able to find a market to sell that
Well,
used car.
About the Honda CR-V, the Honda EV they have, right? You know what that is, right? That's a rebadged Chevrolet Blazer EV, which is the funniest part is if you want that or if you want the Honda Acura, the Acura EV, you got to wait like 6 months for it, but you can go to any Cadillac lot and buy a Lyric, any color you want. Right there, right on, and drive
Which
off.
actually probably should tell you about how suspicious people are about anything with the GM.
What I'm saying is, like, if you're going to wait 6 months for an Acura, which is really a rebadged Cadillac, Lyric,
I hear you.
Just buy the Cadillac. There's this,
certainly makes sense. But with EVs, taking into account this issue of the resale value, it really changes the calculation. Did you get a good, decent trade-in when you got your new vehicle?
Oh, I beat them over the head with my trade. I got 40 grand on my trade.
All right, okay. So think about what you're going to do with an EV if you ever get one. Do you think, Don? Do you think that Dwight will ever get an EV? Really?
Well, he talked about the Hummer.
Yeah, but unfortunately, they could. They did. I would still. It's like they kept delaying it. They kept delaying it. Then they raised the price because when I reserved it, it was like $80,000 or $88,000. Then they took it up to $130,000. I'm like, $88,000 I'll pay, but not $100. That $130 is a bridge too far. And says the guy who bought a Cadillac Escalade.
I mean, my wife
somehow
my wife wants to buy a Tesla just because she's now a big supporter of Elon Musk. I'm like, okay, that's really not a reason to go out and buy a Tesla.
I know. We like Lee Iacocca.
Tell her to get another account on X.
And here's the, I really like Lee Iacocca, but I was going to run out and buy an Aries K, maybe a Reliant because that's there's some Trek value there with the Reliant. If you remember, for Star Trek II, the USS Reliant was Khan's ship when he took over. Chekhov was the first officer on that ship. But yeah, that's the only reason why anybody would buy a Reliant because they are Trekkies.
I want to second what Mark said about the Japanese cars, like in the Hondas, because we've owned some Hondas in the past, and they do retain value. I remember we had our Odyssey van in for servicing years and years ago before we basically gave it to my brother-in-law, and the dealer, after we had it serviced and brought it back home, they were calling us and saying, we want to buy your car. And we're like, well, we don't want to sell the car, but they were almost begging us, we want your car.
Every time
we had a 2006 Civic that we had given to our kids that wound up with Spencer and his wife. And after Spencer passed, his widow didn't need 2 cars, and so she eventually sold the car itself, no trade-in, just car, and 18-year-old car basically, and she still got a few $1,000 for it, and it had some things like the driver's side window wouldn't roll down, the visors, there was those little things. I mean, that's something the dealer can fix. If we had to fix it, it would cost us money. The dealer, that cost them.
It's probably like a $20 switch, that they need to replace.
Like that.
No, you are right. You are right. I've had in the family. I mean, we've had Toyotas, and they've gone a couple 100,000 miles easy.
But Let me back this up. Don, you used to be a Ford family. You had a Ford Taurus. Your dad had a Mercury Sable.
And that's why we own Japanese cars.
Are you telling me the Hondas drive better than your Taurus?
I mean, look, I had a Ford Tempo. We had a Taurus wagon. We had a Taurus. Yeah, we had. I grew up with American cars because that's really, someone my age. That's what we had, right?
Yeah.
And so, but when my father bought the Lexus, the used Lexus for the first time, that all of a sudden started to change the whole dynamic, because when he didn't even get to drive it that much before he had a stroke and passed, and then we took it over, and we saw like, whoa, this is what a car should be: quieter, a nice ride, compared to the American car. And Dave talked about foreign cars. I mean, the ones that in your family go on 200,000 miles. I mean, yeah, I mean, I think most of the Lexus that we bought them secondhand used, but you can run them to 200,000. Just make sure you change the oil and keep up the basic maintenance, and you can run those cars for a long time.
Dwight,
yes.
It's actually a shame that Jason Trott wasn't on this show, because as a potential litigator, he would have learned a very important lesson, which is don't ask a question where the answer you don't know may go in a completely different direction. So asking the question of, weren't you a Ford family, and letting that open, that's not a good
Hey,
look.
look, let me tell you, Mark, I had a Buick LeSabre, got 175,000 miles on it. Had a Oldsmobile LSS, got 190,000 miles on it before the transmission went. I had a GMC Envoy, 146,000 miles on it before the transmission went out. Then I had an Acadia, which is the first dog of an American car I ever had. That one, the transmission went out in 5 years. But my first Yukon, if it weren't for the accident on the Baltimore Washington Parkway I probably would still have that car. I bought the blue Yukon because that just after they fixed it just didn't feel right. So I bought a blue one. And then I just kind of saw a good deal on an Escalade, and that's the only reason I did that. The deal I got on the Escalade was crazy good.
Well, when I was a kid, we always had American cars. I'm of the same age as you guys. But when we had Chevys, and they went through a bad period during that time when I was coming up in the 70s, 80s. And what switched us is the family. I got a Toyota Tercel because my friend had a Toyota Tercel. That car was so good. My family liked it so much that they continued to buy Toyotas, in my father's case, for the rest of his life. Always bought Toyotas. So we became sort of a Toyota family in that case.
Did you have the hatchback Tercel? Dave, was it the hatchback? Was it a hatchback Tercel?
No. I think it had 4 doors. But I love that car.
Yeah, because the hatchback Tercel reminds me of the battle trikes from Dune, the movie. Okay. The original, Captain Picard.
Well, that was a beautiful car, very tight, great gas mileage. But I ran it into the ground, and then it was basically done. But I love that car. And one other point, what happened was our auto industry really, really slipped, and the foreign competition, especially from the Japanese, really helped us. I know it was painful to go through, but I had a friend from Michigan, and she told me that when you'd buy a car, because she knew people worked for the auto industry and were in the factory, she said it depends if the car is made on a Friday or a Monday, because on the Friday, everyone's taking it easy. On a Monday, they're hung over. So if your car
you want to build on Wednesday.
Yes. You would ask for that. When was the car? You try to find out when the car was made, because it was made on a Friday or Monday, it may not be that good. So the foreign competition really helped us.
And also the big three, I think, did not see the competition from the Japanese automakers. I mean, Hondas and Toyotas, they used to have their dealerships like gas stations, they were not, And if you remember the very first Honda Civic, it was like a Mini Cooper. It was a tiny little car, And then now you have, if you look at the Civics of today, they're like twice the size of the original Honda Civic. The Accord is way bigger than it used to be. Although I can't believe they call the Accord and Camry a large car, Because I know what a large car is. That's a Chevrolet Impala from the 70s. That's a big
Oh
car.
yeah, that's a bone of a car. Yeah.
That all goes to like when you try to rent a car.
Mhm.
Don't you just love the classifications of what is
Oh yeah.
mid-size? All
Oh
this
yeah.
other, really?
And you know what I like Enterprise. I love renting cars from Enterprise. I actually reserved a Chevy Tahoe last time I was in Florida, and they gave me a Nissan Armada that had transmission issues, so I had to swap that out. So they gave me a Mazda CX-9, and then something went wrong with that, so I had to swap that out. Then they gave me a Chrysler minivan, and that was fine. You know.
Yeah, I mean, we just rented we don't we rent by the classification, and so we just
Yeah.
rented a car when we were in Arizona, and we wound up with a Chevy Malibu, which I think is an okay car, but we had to do a lot of highway driving to get around. And
Don't you hate that the transmission shut off thing when the Malibus they have?
Yeah, but it's so noisy. We were like, is there something wrong with this car? Because it seemed like we could hear everything, and we just weren't used to that because my wife's got an a Lexus RX 350. I've got an ES 350. We've just been buying those things from the auto brokers for the last several years, and everything is just much quieter, much better. And you've got these bells and whistles. The Japanese had paid a lot of attention to a lot of things that the American manufacturers hadn't, and my wife is focused on trying to make sure when she buys a car, that can't always happen, but she hopes that the dealer, that the broker, actually has a car made in Japan versus say made in Canada or in America.
Fremont.
She thinks the cars are much better made, but she's got a 2015 RX. It still has a Toyota battery in there, Lexus battery in there, and we're like, we can't, we're probably jinxing this, but we can't believe the battery has lasted all these years. It's crazy.
Well, my Yukon had the original battery. Actually, my Yukon, all I did with my Yukon is oil changes and the maintenance. The only thing I had to have done were the brakes on it because I let my nephew use it and kind of rid the brakes down a little bit too hard, I think. But I mean, that was the only thing I had to do. I mean, I've never had any mechanical issues with the car, like keeping me straight. And that's with all of the GM cars. I have never been stranded on the side of the road with my GM cars.
So I'm going to need to drop off, but
okay, let's do final thoughts. We're actually 3 minutes away, so why don't you start, Mark? Final thoughts.
Well, I did. We have, of course, Christmas is coming, as they say. And the club, Montgomery County Republican Club, and others will be sponsoring a Toys for Tots. And we have heard that the Marine Corps, the sponsor in Montgomery County, Toys for Tots, needs some space in which they can store the toys. And so we're looking for somebody or real estate or somebody with some space that on a
8,000 square feet is what they need.
8,000. Wow.
That's a lot.
That is a lot of toys.
Yeah, a lot of kids.
Yeah, good for them. We don't come up with that much, but we do our share. We try to do our share in any way. But we are looking for space. We're hoping that with all of the empty space that's out there, commercial space, that we can perhaps find a place that will be able to host that for us.
I don't know why the county council just doesn't open up one of their county buildings. Honestly, that building where we used to do our conventions, the area where we had the donuts and stuff like that, they could give that space to Toys for Tots. That was a decent amount of space there.
Sure.
Or at Montgomery College, just say. But Democrats, unless they can get a good photo op out of it, they're not going to do that. Any other thoughts, Mark?
None.
Don, final thoughts.
Final thoughts. All right. Dwight, your favorite Orioles. Congratulations.
Yes.
They clinched a playoff spot for the second year in a row. First time they've done that since 96 and 97. Wow. They kind of limped into the playoffs, but so did a lot of other teams on the
team. 2 wins in a row. They're on a 2 wins games.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that I don't think they're going to get to the World Series, but on the other hand, they could because none of the teams that are playing out there is particularly so dominant that they couldn't be in the mix. But we'll have to wait and see how that works out for them. Redskins, we talked a little bit about this today at lunch, I guess, or after, Redskins, maybe they found a quarterback, or the Commanders, but I won't call them that. If Jaden Daniels continues to play like that there's hope for Washington after all. I
Don't worry,
enjoyed
don't choke. Don't choke.
I enjoyed getting to sit in Marcus's Cybertruck. That elicited a few comments from my friends on Facebook, and I sent that picture to my kids and said this was a late birthday present. I also sent it to my wife, who had been out. She was out with a friend at the lunch, and as soon as she got that picture, she called me. She goes, "What's all this about? Whose truck is this?" And everything. It that just changes everything. It's like, what's this? This is a Cybertruck. What the heck are you doing with us, in the Cybertruck and everything like that?
So did anybody say, Don, did you get this as a birthday present?
No, but I did have a friend of mine saying that he wanted to ride in it, thinking that I already owned it. Actually, and another friend of mine who's an attorney down in Southern Maryland, he says, did you buy that? I'm like,
What?
No. There's not that kind of financing available for that. But it was fun. I mean, that's quite a seeing it up close and then watching, you were there, Dwight. That's an amazing vehicle, what it's got there. People commented that it wasn't a truck, but because the truck bed is hidden when you have that thing enclosed, it doesn't look like the traditional truck. But you press, you press that button and there's the truck bed. It's like it's every bit a truck at that point. So it's very ingenious, design and everything by Musk. And I thought it was interesting when Marcus said that it's really a pain in the neck to clean and some other.
It's like a giant refrigerator, stainless steel refrigerator.
Yeah. My son said he hates cleaning off his stainless steel, appliances. He says, I can't imagine trying to clean, a Cybertruck, which has got so much more surface area to it and everything like that. But I don't know. Let's see where the election takes us. We're getting down to, what is it now? 38 days. I have my mail-in ballot, and my wife's mail-in ballot arrived the other day, and so we've got that. And a lot of votes are going to already be cast before we get to the VP debate next week. And as they're going to continue to campaign. Trump and Harris continue to campaign, but they are campaigning, I think, in the end, with early voting and other things going on, for a smaller sliver of votes that are up there, because people start casting their votes now. There's going to be a lot of things that are locked in, but it still looks pretty tight. I mean, it seems to me that there's more momentum in the polling in the swing states for Trump lately than for Harris. It's kind of swung back the other way a little bit. There's a lot of polls that I'm seeing are just showing that Trump is doing better, all within the margin of error. But I'm still somewhat convinced that there are a lot of Trump voters that don't participate in these polls or won't tell the pollsters what they're doing. And on election day, you're going to see a lot of people casting votes for Trump that are just not reflected in any poll whatsoever. But in the end, it comes down to the Electoral College, and I think Trump has got a good shot at this. So that's it.
David, final thoughts.
Well, yeah, just to piggyback on that, I agree. I think Harris, she's avoided all kinds of interviews. Usually when you get a job, they give you you get job interviews, and in her case, she's avoided the job interview and she avoided primaries. But I do think she's coming back down to earth. Knock on wood. So no, I think Trump will end up winning. All's well. I'm coming back to Montgomery County for the book. I'll let you know about that when I get details. And I'm working on a Substack column. I'll try to get that out. And congrats to the Orioles. Hopefully they go far. But I remember the days in baseball where it was the American League East winner plays the American League West winner, and they go on to the World Series. So this whole playoff system, I'm not a big fan of, because It just seems to me that there's just too many people in the playoffs. You played all those games. I know money. Yeah, I got
I
it.
was going to say, and how often did the Washington Senators get in? Anyway.
Well, what did they say of the Washington Senators? They were I don't know. It was a play on last in the American League East, but they used to stink. But all was well otherwise, and hopefully it'll be a good weekend. But that's, and I did apologize. I do apologize, Don. I couldn't make your party. I did want to come, but today was a little
What?
That's fine. You'd have to come from a longer distance than the rest of the guys.
Yeah, I certainly would have done it though. But yeah, Gaithersburg is not, and I don't think Gaithersburg's too far. It's not prohibitively far.
Well, it wasn't even Gatesburg. That was like Rio. It's like North Rockville. What are we calling it now?
Yeah. I mean, it is right off. It is right off of 270, so it's easy to get on and off the road. So,
is there a metro stop near there? I know there's a metro stop in Gaithersburg. I didn't know if there was one near
not
that.
Not there. But you just
Shady Grove.
Shady Grove's down the road a ways.
All right, but anyway, yes, so all is well, and hopefully, it'll be a good week. And the other thing, Dwight, I was recorded doing my presentation in Charles County, but there was a technical glitch. It's no big deal. It's just one clip, and I think that's lost. But in the future, I learned a lot about the Google channels and how to save and send such a thing, which I didn't know that much about. So, but otherwise, that's about it.
Hey, Dwight, I think Chris is still there getting food. So,
right. He didn't come when we all went to go look at the Cybertruck. He did not come with us.
We never did see him when we left, so he could still be there collecting food. So
yeah, I mean, you got television there and you got food there. Two of his favorite. Well, there you go. But let's see. My final thoughts. One, we've got a couple of things. Go Orioles. You got to believe in Orioles magic. It's Orioles magic. Believe it. And the fact they got this far, it's all because of the magic. Also, get your yard signs out. It's put out your Hogan signs, put out your Trump signs. I've already had 4 Trump signs stolen. I'm now numbering them because I've got like 35 Trump signs. So the first one was 1 of 35. Now we're up to 5 of 35. That'll probably get stolen. They stole my Hogan.
Put an RFID tag in them, and then they can find out where the heck they went.
Oh yeah, and they stole my Hogan sign too. I'm like, the fourth time they stole the Hogan sign too, and I'm thinking, you left the Hogan sign alone, and now you decide to take the Hogan sign with it. So, I wonder if MCPS teachers are giving bounties on Trump signs again this year, like they did in 2016. 10 points for every Trump sign you bring in.
But get RFID tags. That's how they caught some people in some other parts of the country stealing campaign signs. They put the tags in there, and then they were able to trace them down and then charge the people, with theft, and everything for having stolen.
I think I'll do that for my next round. I was told I cannot hook up.
I think they actually put air tags in them, which gets kind of expensive. But hey.
Yeah. Well, then here's the funniest thing is, I was told I cannot take a car battery with jumper cables and tie it to the wire frames for the signs. I would be negligent evidently for that, so I can't do that.
Don, the air tag and the RF that assumes that the sign is actually being taken someplace and kept, as opposed to taken someplace and dumped.
Yeah, you'll probably find them at an MCPS teachers teachers lounge or something like that, because they're probably giving bounties.
Take them to the transfer station where they get all chewed up and buried, and then you're done.
Yeah. And my final thoughts is a couple things coming down the pike. We have Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker coming to Bethesda, Maryland on October 10th, speaking to the Montgomery County Republican Club, the fastest growing club in Montgomery County. Join us, and then you too can come for free to see Governor Walker. It's only $30 to join, and you get to meet Governor Walker. I mean, what are the opportunities? This is going to be a small venue, so you'll be able to actually spend time with Governor Walker. Come on, come all, October 10th, We'd love to see you there. Go to MontgomeryCountyRepublicClub.com to RSVP, and if you're not a member, it's only $30. We're probably the most economically friendly club in Maryland for you to join at $30. And also save the date, October 19th. We've got a big statewide Get Out the Vote rally out in Frederick, Maryland for Neil Parrott and all the other candidates. Come on out and hit some doors, get your yard sign, get your precinct bags, if they even do precinct bags anymore. Get your early voting center bags. And then after the elections are over, when we're celebrating the victory of Trump, the Trump-Vance ticket, we have there's a scholarship event for Governor Ehrlich's scholarship fund at Towson University. Go to the Montgomery County Republican Club website. We have the link to the details on that, but it's a great event, great organization. Best thing is the money you give there is tax deductible. So, you get to write that. That's money that the Democrats can't take from you. So come on out to the scholarship fund. That's November 14th. And that is all I've got until next week. Stay dry because we're in for another wet weekend. Good night, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.